we dey use variables for JavaScript to save singular data, and the name wey we wan take store this data na the name of the variable. Now, we dey use arrays to save a lot of data inside one variable, and we dey separate them with comma. However, the problem with this array to save plenty data na say all of this data go share one singular name. And even though we fit access this data using bracket notation, e go still dey hard for us to distinguish wetin each data stand for on its own. Wetin I mean by this? Make we say we dey try save the data of how much we don dey spend. Make we say we buy code switch course for 3,000 naira and we save am inside this variable wey we call cost, and we go set am to 3,000 to indicate how much we spend. But now, not be only this course na im we buy other things. So let's say that same week we buy food for 5,000, and then we also spend 3,000 on transportation, and we give our friends gifts of 6,000. Now, if we simply save all of this data inside this variable, inside this array, e go dey hard for us to understand which number belong to which spending, because now our array will just give am one singular name. But not be this name wey we give am cost, not be only this name, na it be the things wey we spend. If we change am to spending, e still not show us wetin we spend each money on. We need way for programming to store data wey go also allow us to label each data to know exactly wetin each data dey for, and na where objects come in for JavaScript be that. Object dey allow us to write data and give am label. For example, in this object wey I create now, you go see say we don rearrange our spendings, and now we fit not only know how much we spent, but also wetin we spend am for. Na an example of how we dey write object be this for JavaScript. We dey write our object normal. I'd say we dey write variable. We go use the keyword let, then we go use the name of our object and equal to. But instead of square brackets when we dey use for arrays, we go use curly brackets for our object. Then inside the curly brackets, we go write what we dey call key value pairs. The name of the data wey we dey store na im we dey call the key or the property. Na im we dey write first. And then the data wey we wan store na im we dey call the value. Both of them together na im we dey call key value pairs. Then after you write your first key value pair, you go put comma. Then for the second line, you go write your second key value pair, your third, and so on. You fit write as many as you want store inside your data. Now, your object properties or the keys for JavaScript fit be any data type. It fit be number or it fit be string. And the value where you want save also fit be any data type. It fit be number, it fit be string, it fit be array. Like this example where we get for here. It fit even be another object. So you will get object inside an object. And for JavaScript, you fit also save function inside an object. For this example now, you will still get various data types inside our object, both as our property and as our value. We get strings, numbers, booleans, and arrays. You go also notice say for some of these key value pairs, our keys will be our properties. Some of them get quotation marks and some no get. This is because say for JavaScript, if your key na one single word, we no get number or any special character, you fit use them with or without quotation marks. You fit choose to use quotation marks if you like, and you fit use one quotation mark or double quotation marks if you like, and you fit also choose to not use quotation marks. However, if space dey between your string for your property, that is, you dey use words will be more than one word, we get space between them, or you dey use special characters like hashtag, @ and all other symbols, then you must use either single quote or double quote. Now, one thing wey you fit use your object do, in fact, these are the major reason why objects they exist. Now, to create different data of things would belong to the same category. Which I mean by this, let's say we get two dogs, dog 1 and dog 2. We know say, okay, these two things are dogs and they get the same properties. So we fit save the data of the properties of both our dogs inside two objects. Now wetin we dey call object-oriented programming. Now let's say for our dog 1, im get the name of Lucky and the breed of German Shepherd, and im age na 4 years. Im hobbies na dancing and playing fetch. We fit save this data inside an object like this. We use our name to represent a name, Lucky. We use the breed as German Shepherd and the age as 4 years old. The hobbies, because there be more than one, we create an array for am. Now for our dog 2, we do the same thing. The name of this dog 2 now na Rex. The breed na Bulldog. The age na 5 years old, and im hobbies na jumping and rolling on the floor. We also save this one inside beta using an object like this. So now you don't know how to write objects, how to use key value pairs for JavaScript. But how we take the access one value inside our object? Well, we fit access value inside our object in 2 ways. The first na wetin we dey call dot notation, and the second na bracket notation. Dot notation dey very simple. You go just write the name of your object dot the name of the key. So if we dey try access the first value for this our object now, we go simply write the name of the object dot the property of that specific value wey we dey try access. So let's say we dey try access the name of our dog. We go just write the name of our object, which is dog 1, dot the property, which is name. So dog 1 dot name. And this one now will return the value of our dog name. Same for our dog 2. If you want to know the name of the dog 2, you could just write dog 2 dot name. And if you want to know the hobbies, you could just write dog 2 dot hobbies. If you want to know the age, dot age, and so on and so on. The second way now to use bracket notation. Remember, we use bracket notation for our arrays, but for bracket notation for arrays, we use the position, the number. We represent the position. We start from 0, 1, 2, 3. For bracket notation for objects, you will use the name of the key or the property. So now, if you write the name of our object, open square bracket, close square bracket, and inside this square bracket, we write the key. It will return the value where that key represent. But for this one, you must know, say, if your property gets double quotation marks, you must put the double quotation mark inside. In fact, now why would they use this bracket notation to be that? Because if you get property will be more than one word with space between them, or any property we get double quotes, if you try to use dot notation, it no will work because of this space. So we go use bracket notation. So let's say we give our dot one more property of vet visits to show how many times you don't go vet. If we want access this one by using dog 1 dot vet visits, it not go work because of the space. But if we use bracket notation, dog 1 open bracket double quote vet visits, then it go work. Now we fit use variable as the property of our objects we want access. What I mean by this, I say if we get one variable, let's say my key variable, and we set this my key variable to be equal to age. Now writing dog2 dot age will be the same as writing dog2 dot my key. This one they very straightforward because this my key variable we don't set them to age. So anywhere we use them, now like say we they use age. So if we say dog2 dot my key, we just say dog2 dot age. So both of them will give us the value of our adult age. The same thing apply if the value of this variable now any other key or property for our object, as long as the variable now that key, if we use the name of your object dot that variable. Very simple. Now, just as you use your object property in dot notation to access the value of that property, you also use them to change the value. So instead of just accessing the property, you go reassign them. How you go take reassign them now? Saying you go write the name of your object dot the property like normal, but now you could cut equal to the value where they try change the property to. So now let's say we want change the name of our second dog. We want change them from Rex to Lucy. Instead of just accessing this dog2 dot name, we could call say dog2 dot name equal to Lucy. So now if we console log our dog2, we go see say the name don't change. And just as we fit use dot notation to change value, we fit also use bracket notation to change the value as well. Another thing you must know about objects now, how to add new properties to your objects. To add new property, you will do the same approach. You will use the name of your object, dot or bracket notation with the new property you want add, and then equal to the value of that property. So let's say you want give our dog a new property of bark to reflect how the dog dey bark. We fit simply write dog.bark equal to woof woof. So essentially, since this dog.bark not exist before, it will automatically add new property of bark. If to say this bark exists before and we write this dog.bark, it will simply change the value. But since this .bark not exist before, it will add new property of bark and it will set the value to whatever day after this equal to, which is roof, roof. And we fit also use and add another property for our second dog. We will give a property of .bark with value of roof, roof. To delete property from your object, you go simply use the delete keyword. So let's say we want delete this .bark where we just add. You could just write delete.bark, which means say we now delete the bark property. Just like I tell you, say strings, numbers, and arrays, they get their own methods where we take they do things to them, maybe modify them or change them or check something in them. Objects also get their own methods as well. One common method we will get now to check if our object gets one specific property inside. This method we call them as own property. So to use this method, you go first write the name of your object, then you go put dot as own property. Then inside the bracket of this method, you go write the property where you did check for. So for instance, if you write our dog one dot as own property and then check for name, this one will return true because yes, our dog gets name property. If we do age, it will return true. If we do hobbies, it will return true. However, if we check for one property where our dog no get, it will return false. So if we check for, let's say, head or nudes or color or any other thing we will not write as part of our key value pairs, it will return false. Objects for JavaScript fit dey very complicated. I tell you, say if we store any data inside them, if we store simple data like Boolean, numbers, strings, but we also fit store complex data like arrays. We get arrays inside. We fit even store objects. We get objects inside, and that object to get objects inside, and that object to get object inside. Now, you fit say for this kind of situation, we will get arrays inside objects, inside objects, inside arrays, inside objects. You feel they're very difficult to access our values, but if you understand the presuppose behind how we take the draw, it will make easy for you. You could just guys work your way back from inside the object, and it not really did that act once you understand. So I will give us example where we could take, become familiar with how to do this one. We go call our object animal shelter. Now, for this animal shelter, we want to store different details about our animal shelter, and we go navigate this kind of complex objects. First thing we advise now for this our example. Now you go look at the first properties. So inside this object now, even though it is very complicated to the naked eyes, you go see that we get just 3 properties as the first properties. We get the properties name, location, and animals. And after you identify the first properties, you go come check which kind bracket follow am. If square bracket follow am, then you go see say the data will we store inside na array. If curly brackets, curly braces follow am, then you will know say na another object take inside this object. So for example, for this our location property, the data will restore inside na another object. And inside this our animals property, the data will restore inside na array. But this array gets 2 other objects inside. So if we want access, let's say, the first property inside our location property, then it could be just like we did to them. No need to be scared. Now, just like we do for our simple objects too. So it will be the name of our object dot the name of the property dot the name of the property inside the property. So it will be animal shelter dot location dot city. And for the second property, it will be animal shelter dot location dot state. And for this one, we get another object inside. It will be animal shelter dot location dot coordinates dot lat if you want access the latitude, or dot lon if you want access this longitude. Now, for the one that contain array inside, it will be animal shelters dot animal. But now you must remember, say, na array we dey try access. And remember how we dey access arrays. Now with bracket notation. So you no fit use dot notation for let, you go use bracket notation to denote which position of array you dey try access. So now the first object now we put am inside this array. So na fit be the first position of our array. And remember, the first position of array na 0 and the second position na 1. So for this first object wey dey inside this array, e go be position 0. Then once we write the position, we can't fit continue with our dot notation. So now if we say dot any of the properties where they inside this first object, maybe this type, breed, or age. And for this second object inside the array, it could be bracket 1 to show you that second position. Then dot any of the properties where they inside this one too. If you be type, breed, or age. Now finally, for our object lesson, I want to tell you the difference between which we call JavaScript object notation and objects, plain JavaScript objects. JavaScript object notation na JSON. JSON dey very popular in the world of programming because na JSON we take the store data for our database and transfer am from one place to another. If you dey save data to your database, let's say you don collect data from your users, you wan save am to your database, or you dey retrieve data from your database wey you don store before, from your backend to your front end, or from your database to your backend, you go always use JSON. The reason why we dey always use JSON, like say, e dey very lightweight and very simple to understand, very simple to use. Na why programmers like am very much. But once you see JSON, for instance, this example of JSON wey we get, you go see that it is very similar to JavaScript objects. And yes, na because say na from JavaScript objects we dey derive JSON, but e get some important differences between them. Now, the first difference, let's say, with JavaScript objects, your properties fit get single quote, double quote, and if you don't even get any quote at all. But with JSON, the properties must always get double quote. Yes, double quote. You no fit use single quote, and you no fit use just the name of the property without quote. No, it must always get double quote. Now, how we will differentiate between JavaScript object and JSON be that. Another example, now say, as I tell you before, the value of your JavaScript object, if it be function, but when you dey write JSON, you no fit get function inside your JSON. No. Finally, for JSON, you no fit use comments. Comments no dey allowed with JSON. With JavaScript objects, ordinary JavaScript objects, you fit write comments for your code, but with JSON, you no fit write any comment. You fit easily convert JavaScript objects for your code to JSON, either to save them or to store them permanently. You fit also convert JSON wey you don save to JavaScript objects if you want use them for your code. For this, we dey use two methods. One to convert from JavaScript object to JSON, and the other one to convert from JSON to JavaScript object. To convert data from JavaScript object to JSON, we dey use the stringify method, JSON.stringify, and to convert data from JSON to JavaScript object, we dey use JSON.parse. So let's say we get this example object and we want to store am for our database. I tell you, you got to convert am first to store am. So you go lose this JSON.stringify, and then inside the bracket, you go write the name of the data where you want convert to JSON, the name of the object where you want convert. Then you go come save this object inside one variable, and now this variable, this JSON variable we just create now you will save to your database, and vice versa. Let's say after you save your data to your database, you won't use them again for your website. You fit also convert them to JavaScript objects to use for your code. And for that, you will do the opposite. You will use JSON.parse. And this one will convert that JSON. You will also write the name of the data you will convert inside your bracket. Then this one now, you come convert them from JSON to JavaScript object.